all of you know me, and I know you. And so this is kind of just a conversation with the crowd. But it was when I was 84 years old, I realized that half my life was over. Now, that I knew that I had to continue. I couldn't retire. That wasn't going to happen. They told me at Southwestern Medical, they said, Boone, we have good news for you and bad news. And I said, okay, good news first. They said, you're going to live to be 114. Bad news, you will not be able to hear or see. I'm at the point now where I can't hear or see. So anyway, that I'm gonna talk to you about leadership today. But it was 16 years ago. I had a guy say to me, he was a writer. He said, I don't understand why you don't step back and let somebody have your place. And I thought, this is a strange question, because you don't just step back, somebody takes your place in some situations, but not in mine. I mean, I was an entrepreneur out there. There wasn't anybody standing behind me. But I realized that he thought there was a limited opportunity at what I call the feeding trough. And I said, the feeding trough in America is infinite. It's unlimited. It's as long as you want to make it, as big as you want to make it. You just have to, if you want to get to the feeding trough, you just have to get up there and get after it. I'm going to talk to you about some of those points that I had the Pickens plan, and now I have the Pickens leadership plan. So that's what you all are not going to have to hear, the old Pickens plan. It'll be the leadership plan that I'll talk about today. But you're going to have a good work ethic if you're going to be successful. And it's so easy, I think, in this state, Oklahoma, grow up in a small town like I did, Holdenville, and a work ethic, it's there. And listen, I check on some of you at different companies where I know OSU graduates are, and I ask, what kind of work ethic do our people have? They always say it's the best. It is. We're all lucky. We're lucky to be from Oklahoma. All you from Oklahoma City and Tulsa, it's too bad. It would have been better if you'd have been from a small town, but you came from a big town. But anyway, I always say work 8 hours, sleep 8 hours. Be sure they're not the same 8 hours. You have to have a plan in life. It's absolutely necessary. I got my plan at Oklahoma State in February 1949. I did not have a plan up to that point. Sure, I was going to school every year, and I was, making the grades and moving along. Always had a job after I was 12 years old, but though I was advancing, but with no plan. My dad, I was initiated in the SAE, Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity, house over on 3rd Street, and my dad came, and he too was an SAE from Tennessee, and he pinned me with his badge. It was a really very sweet ceremony, and now unusual for most boys, but now my dad was not only my dad, he was my brother. And everything went slick for the day until we walked out on the lawn, and he's now getting ready to tell me goodbye. And he said, son, your mother and when he brought her into the conversation, it was serious. And he said, your mother and I don't think you're on the same plan to graduate that we're on for you. And I didn't say anything but nod or shake my head yes or no. And he said, that plan is for you to get out of here, OSU, in June of '51. And I wasn't on that plan. And he proceeded to tell me that he said, you need to get out of school, June of '51. He said, son, you've never had a plan. And he said, a fool with a plan can beat a genius with no plan. And I was listening, and he said, he paused and he said, "Your mother and I are afraid we have a fool with no plan." That was getting serious, and I still had no response other than say, "You're right, I'm sure." And he said, "You need to get in geology or engineering and get the hell out of school." And he said, "Get a plan, son." And he kind of slapped me on the shoulder and said, "I love you." Got in his car and drove off. I'm telling you, that was on Sunday. And Monday or Tuesday, I got an appointment with Dr. Monette, dean of the geology school, where I had 8 hours at that point. Went over and he looked at everything and he said, Pickens, he said, geologists will always figure with you and try to work out a deal. That's interesting that Brian was a geologist, class 84, and I got out in 51. I've already tipped my hand. I made it, June of 51. But that Dr. Monette said 2 18s, a 19, and a summer school, and he said, by golly, he said, you'll be out of here in June of 51. And I said, Dr. Monette, I now have a plan. I said, sign me up. I'm on board. I got out. Everything worked perfect. And then, interesting, Brian's from Bartlesville. My first job was in Bartlesville. I went to work for Phillips. And my dad was there at graduation. He said, son, I have one more thing for you. And I thought he was going to give me some money. And I said, yeah, Dad, what is it? And he said, good luck. And I had good luck. Okay, move along. That when you've got a plan, you're going to be hunting for something. You're hunting meaning you're going to try to accomplish something. In the oil business, we're always looking for elephants if we can, but small oil fields will satisfy us from time to time, but we'd love to have a big one. So if you're looking for elephants, if your plan is to look for something big, look at big things, and don't be distracted by a rabbit running across the trail. Just stay on the plan and continue to look for big things, and big things will happen. The one that I gave Mike Holder years ago, and some of his golfers have said this to me, said, I remember Coach Holder said, you said, and they've told me that it served them well. But my dad always thought that I took advice. Well, at this point in time, he thought I took advice from people that were not very smarter, that I was wasting my time to listen to them. And so he said, there are 3 things, son, when you start taking advice from somebody that you want to focus on. 1, are they smart? If they're not smart, well, don't waste your time. You don't want to pay attention to them. 2, do they have a conflict of interest? And 3, do they love me? And I have used that, and it's served me very well. And apparently, I think Bob Tway was one that said that he had used that also. I got an opportunity one time to present something, and I took too long to present, and consequently, my whole presentation was a flop. I was prepared to talk for 10 minutes, and I got 3. And let me just tell you, always be prepared, because young people do not get to talk 10 minutes anywhere unless it's to their wife. And I blew it. It was now after that I realized that I should be able to present anything, any idea I had. Now on questions, you're allowed to go longer, of course. But if all I'm going to get is 3 minutes, I can tell you what I'm selling, and I can tell you how to make the purchase, and I can tell you how it will work for you, and will be a good idea. Okay, 3 minutes to present. The one here is that I've seen managers, decision makers get themselves in a spot where they can't make a decision. They're afraid to make a decision, or somehow they haven't understood the question and feel uncomfortable making a decision. Once the presentation's been made, the presentation is complete, it's on the table, you're the decision maker. For the people that have prepared you to make the decision, for the people around you, your team, it is required for a decision maker to make a decision. That's it. You can't, and I call it ready, aim, 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 aim. They can't ever pull the trigger. Decision makers have to pull the trigger. Okay, this is one I love, and I'm I may be one of a few, but not one of a great number, and that is I am a change advocate. I look for change. I always believe change will get you something better than what you have. It may not be perfect, but you will move in a direction that will be successful for you. And I have, if you go back in my work history, everything, I've always thought what we're doing can be improved upon, which means change. Now, when you get into big change, like I did back in the 80s and 90s, where I was going to change corporate America, that causes a lot of problems for some people. But the change, it worked. I mean, today, change I wanted in the 80s and 90s is now acceptable. Either you produce or move along, they'll get somebody else to play the position for you. But back in 80s and 90s, it was real hard to make any of those changes. So the older people generally do not like change. So I'm peculiar to 84-year-olds. Young people like you want change because you think change might get old people like me out and you move up. And so anyway, change I think is good. Here I talk about cheating and temptation. Cheating is unacceptable, so it shouldn't require over 30 seconds, and I'm running out of time, so I'll make it 15 seconds. Cheating's out. There's no pleasure in winning anything by cheating. Temptation I might spend 45 seconds on, but I can't handle temptation any better than anybody else can. So way back when I decided this could be a problem for me, I just didn't go where I was tempted. Just don't fool with the deal. So my plan was go from the office when I get through with work and go home. There were no stops on the way. I didn't stop and have a beer with anybody or anything else. If I want to talk to them, I'd talk to them at the office, on the telephone, or whatever. I didn't need to go to the bar to be tempted. So I wasn't, and I didn't go, and it served me very well. Patience. Always been a problem for me. I have been impatient. I've wanted things to happen quicker than that it was even realistic to do that. As I've gotten older, I'm much more patient. I still want things to happen, but I do a better job of planning and then seeing it through, but realizing it can't happen tomorrow. And I used to play cards with a guy. He's the best gin rummy player I've ever seen. He could play in the big time. And he would sit and you'd stand behind him and watch him throw his cards, make his decision. And somebody'd say, Ed, play up. And he'd always turn around and say, don't rush the monkey, and you'll see a better show. Where that comes from is an organ grinder with a monkey that dances, and audience would say something, and he'd say, don't rush my monkey, and you'll see a better show. This is a big deal right here. You see what I've got, don't you? That's the Big 12 championship trophy. You know we've only won that once. That's football championship's what it is. But I've had my picture made 100 times with the trophy. I know we haven't won it 100 times, but I do enjoy the deal. That's another one where the part about but my grandmother told me, she said, Sonny, don't ever forget where you came from and always be generous. And I have remembered that. I'm from Holdenville, went to Oklahoma State. I have been generous. I've been wealthy. I've had the money to give, and I've enjoyed giving it. Okay, now you're going to get out of here, and you too, I hope, will feel that the experience was, you may not heist the football trophy, maybe that's special to me, but it was pretty expensive. I did get my money's worth, and let me tell you, and in conclusion, that if you want your name on that football stadium over there, I'll tell you how you can do it. Just give more money than I did, and they'll take my name off the stadium. Thank you.